love, truth, justice, and peace of God find home in your heart and strengthen you in mind and body and spirit. Assalamu alaikum, my dear friends. Last year I had the opportunity of a lifetime, and I don't say that lightly. It's an experience that will stay with me for my lifetime, inshallah. I visited the shrine of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, in Karbala, Iraq, during Arba'een, the largest annual peaceful human gathering in the world. Let me put those two things again together. Karbala, Iraq, the largest peaceful human gathering in the world. Estimates are from a low of 15 million to upwards of 30 million who make the journey to Karbala every year. My friend and I made a film about it, as we just heard, and you can find it on YouTube, For Love of Hussein. It's 30 minutes long, but if you don't have that much time, this first clip, if we can play it, is 30 seconds, and I think that's the point of the film to me.
Justice. That is the main takeaway from all of this. The courage to stand with the oppressed against the powerful, to take a stand for truth, to take a stand for justice, to take a stand that requires sacrifice. That is the essence of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and true Islam and true humanity.
I don't know, the volume was a little low, but it basically said that justice and taking a stand for the oppressed is the essence of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, and as well as true humanity. In addition to being a pastor, I host a radio show on KBOO, a community radio station in Portland. And I moderated a panel discussion at Portland State University. It was regarding the war against Yemen. And this was in February 2018, and it was entitled The U.S.-Saudi Coalition Bringing Peace or War. And it was in the follow-up to that conference, in an email exchange, that I actually first heard of Hussein. Remember, I've been a minister for 27 years. First heard of Hussein. And he was referenced in regards to the panelists, all of whom had taken risks and had sacrificed in varying ways to bring the truth as they saw it to light. Each of the panelists was a truth teller. They told inconvenient truths about the powers that be. And that's how I was introduced to Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. He was a truth teller and was martyred for embodying the truth. That's the only thing I knew about him. I knew nothing else about him except that. And so I wanted to learn more. Sending Christians and Sunni Muslims to Iraq for Arba'een is one of the things that Sister Zara Abadi and the Hussainiya Society of Seattle does, and I'm happy to support her good work. In fact, they've just purchased property in the north of Seattle, in the Seattle metro, and they hope to build a center there, inshallah. And I'm sure she'd love to talk with you all about that and hear your encouragement. And you can visit their website, just search Hussainiya and Seattle. The Hussainiya Islamic Society of Seattle paid for the trip for my friend Josh and I. Josh has done some filming, and so we went together to make an amateur documentary. It was more than that, though, for me. It was timely in my life. This is rather personal. It's a search, in a sense. You could say I'm experiencing some kind of spiritual growth spurt, I would hope. Maybe it's just a midlife crisis.
This 50-mile walk from Najaf to Karbala is not easy. It is wall-to-wall, people in the desert heat. But walking does offer time for reflection. It was important to me to do the walk, even more so than to make a movie. This was a spiritual visit for me. I'm glad I made the choice to do the walk rather than focus on making a movie about the walk. It gave me the opportunity for self-reflection. What is my life about? Where do I stand? For whom do I speak?
But I've discovered a need in my life to search more deeply about what's really going on in our world and what are the forces at work and to what paths are we being led. And I realize finding myself putting less trust in our traditional sources of information, including our mainstream media. I'm discovering that the forces are dark forces, as the title of this very conference indicates, Rising Above Hate. What is hate and how do we rise above it? I didn't go to Arba'in for healing. I didn't go for intercession. I didn't go for forgiveness of sins. I didn't go for mourning. I didn't even know people went there for that until I went there and started talking to people. I went because I wanted to see this person and why there were so many who were attracted to him. I wanted to see the person whose life was so pure that he gave it to save his grandfather's faith. I wanted to visit the person who didn't compromise his principles. I wanted to see the person who might inspire me in some way to find even just a little bit of courage and character for whatever it is that Allah is calling me to do. I wanted to see the person who in his life and in his death rose above hate and showed us all how to do it. Some Muslims I have met since then are curious as to whether I have converted or reverted to Islam. And I don't know how to answer that exactly. I like to think that my faith has expanded. I have a heart for Jesus, peace be upon him, and I always will, inshallah. But I also have a heart for Hussein, peace be upon him, and a heart for Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his progeny. And being introduced to Hussein and the Prophet and his family and the Islamic faith in loving ways, by loving people, has expanded my heart. You really cannot have an interfaith experience and expect not to be changed in important ways, unless we are vulnerable enough to have our hearts touched by another. It's not really an interaction. It's just us trying to convince others of our position, kind of like a sales pitch. But I cannot worry about whether others are changed by what I say. That's up to God. I want my heart to be expanded by others, to be expanded by you. Or to put it more accurately, to have God expand my heart through you. And that has happened a great deal in this past year in all my interactions with Muslims throughout through the Islamic Center of Portland, which is across the street from my church, and Imam Hussain al-Dalami, my good friend, through the Hussainia Society of Seattle, as I just mentioned, through my online interactions, through the generous opportunity to attend conferences, through the helpful resources and books and websites to which I am been introduced, through reflection, through my ministry in my church, and of course through the opportunity I was given to visit the holy sites in Iraq. And this is what I think it means to rise above hate. It means to have one's own heart expanded. Let me explain. Love expands the heart. Hate shrinks it. Now, how many of you know of Dr. Seuss and the book, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas? Okay. The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, the poor Grinch up alone on his mountain was so tired of the noise of Christmas, of the Who's in Whoville, that he thought if he took away all their presents, they'd stop. He had a heart that was 3 sizes too small. He hated the Who's in Whoville. And then by a miracle, his heart expanded when he ran into Cindy Lou Who, a little girl who, by her kindness, showed him who the Who's were really about. And it wasn't about the bells and the whistles and the presents and all of that. the birth of Jesus, peace be upon him, not things, but generosity. And the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes that day. Sometimes the simplest children's stories have the most profound truths. We cannot stop hate by hating the haters. We cannot just expand someone else's heart. Hate takes a long time to shrink a heart. Sometimes it takes generations. What does it take to shrink a heart? Well, it takes isolation. It takes hurt. It takes ignorance. It takes fear. It takes prejudice. It takes suspicion. It takes rejection. It takes anger. It takes envy. It takes greed. It takes acceptance of falsehood. It takes abuse. It takes oppression. It takes time to allow our hearts to be shrunk. So we can't expand them in a day. Hate is out there, and we can find it embedded in our institutions, in our governments. They can be overtaken. In my tradition, we call this force the demonic. It can take over a whole nation. The demonic does not work for the good of the world. The institutions are called for the good of the world, but sometimes forces that work against, demonic forces. They work to divide us, to shrink our hearts with hate. The demonic works in secret, it works in the dark, it works with deception, it works with lies. There are forces at work in the world that want to shrink our individual hearts and our collective heart. So we live in suspicion and we live in fear, and sadly we become docile to these forces. Any of us, all of us, are susceptible to having hate shrink our hearts. It's like a toxic weed that grows in the soil of ignorance. Hate is the result of so many complex negative emotions. So you can't convince people or prove to people or sell people on your opinion. We can only actually love. And you can only do that by allowing your own heart to be expanded by another. Rising above hate, how do we do that? If hate shrinks our heart, how does love expand it? And I should add this. The Latin word for heart is cor, C-O-R, where we get the word coronary. But we also get the word courage. And so we think of someone with the heart of a lion, like Hussein's half-brother Abbas, having the heart of a lion, a courageous heart, a heart that is huge, filled with love. As your heart grows with love, you become courageous. Other things matter less. So how do we become courageous? How do we expand our hearts? Well, the Buddha in the Dhammapada is reported to have said, "Do not consider the faults of others, or what they have or haven't done. Consider rather what you yourself have or have not done." And we cannot do that if we think we want to stop the hatred of others. We want to stop hate. Therefore, we want to stop them, those haters. You can't just tell people, "You're hateful, stop it." It won't work. We can only allow our own hearts to be expanded and allow Allah to do the rest. So, I am in the shrine of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, and it is beautiful. And the air conditioning is on. It's warm for this Northwesterner in Iraq. And so the air conditioning was a welcome comfort. But more than that, it's filled with the sound of prayer. People, some of them are crying, some are standing, some are sitting, some are in various postures of prayer. Poetry is being recited in many different places, and I don't understand a word of it, except every now and then I hear a name I recognize. Ali, Zainab, Abbas, Hussein, and I know the story is being told about their love, about their sacrifice, about their sadness, about their hearts breaking, about their courage.
Imam Hussein, alayhi salam, refused to submit to the authority of Yazid, who he believed to be unjust. Hussein refused to allow Islam to be directed by tyrants with small minds and large greed. His brutal slaughter and the slaughter of his 72 companions on the plains of Karbala 1400 years ago was a tragedy of cosmic significance. But it was something else. It is a victory. It is a tragedy that repeats itself all over the world, and it is a victory in the hearts of those who will not allow that tragedy to be the final word on the matter. The invitation to visit Hussein alayhi salam is the invitation from his own lips. As the battle ended and Hussein faced his own end, he called out to the world, to future generations, "Is there anyone who will help me?" The response is from any in the world, regardless of religion or culture or language. Labbaik, ya Hussein. Here I am, Hussein.
And so this is about a week before the day of Arba'in, and I'm with a tour group. And I decided I want to go and I want to touch the big box in the center of the shrine, the lattice work above the grave of Hussein. And at first I wasn't sure if I would do it or if I should do it. You know, if I was appropriate for me. Hussein is not a figure in my religion. But I kept hearing all week long that Hussein is for everyone. And so I decided to go and do it. Now, I don't know what it was like on the women's side, but on the men's side, even a week before the day of Arba'in, the place is packed. And it is a push and a pull, like ocean waves of bodies. Your feet almost leave the ground. There's so many people, and you know where you're headed. You've got a goal. It's like swimming in the ocean. You don't need to be aggressive, but you do need to hold your own. And you swim through the bodies, being pushed left and right with my brothers. Finally, I get close enough, and I'm almost there. And I should stop again, because I'm conscious of being different. Different religion, different language. I only speak English. I'm from America. My reddish hair, well, now a little bit gray. Pale skin. And of the thousands of people in the shrine that day, I've joked that I was probably the whitest guy in the room. But I reach up and I put my hand trying to reach the lattice work, and I can't quite reach it. But what happened to me is that as I reached up and I couldn't touch it, a hand took mine and pushed it against the grate. And this image will be forever be in my mind. It's this brown hand taking my white hand, pushing it against the shrine of Sorry, forgive my emotion. It's been a year. I still can't tell that story without tears. It was a visual imprint on my mind, beyond all color, beyond all race, beyond all religion, beyond all language. The language of love and truth and courage is one. The love of Hussein. And my eyes met with the person who took my hand, and we just looked at each other. A few seconds later, I broke away and I went into another part of the shrine just nearby, and I saw this man, and he was just staring at me. Tears were streaming down his face. And he asked me, as many did on my trip, "Where are you from?" I told him I'm from America, and he started bawling. He hugged me and he kissed me. I've joked that I've never been kissed by so many men with scratchy beards.
The most emotional moment for me was when I was able to swim through the bodies to touch the lattice work that is above the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I couldn't quite reach it. A hand took mine and pushed it against the lattice work. I looked at the person who helped me. Our eyes met, and I felt a surge of emotion. It was as if Imam Hussein alayhi salam was calling me to give myself for truth.
Iraq, a country. When I first went there, felt my first thought was, this is post-apocalyptic. I, like many of us Americans, watched from a distance as our leaders lied to us into war, destroyed Iraq, and then ignored its suffering. No one goes there. No one that I know, except my brother-in-law. He is a professor at New York University, and he goes often to the northern part of Iraq because his work is peace building with the NYU and the University of Kirkuk. But besides my brother-in-law and American soldiers, I didn't know of anybody who went to Iraq. A country that Americans like me need to visit. A country whose flag was noticeably absent in the parade of all of the flags from various countries. A country devastated by the demonic, by lies and wars, by bombs and depleted uranium, by hatred from outside powers, mercenary terrorists, and puppet tyrants. The people left to fend for themselves. There, the U.S. State Department tells Americans not to go to Iraq. Too dangerous, bad, whatever. But what did I find there? I found love. I found tears. I found joy. I found hope. I found my heart had expanded. A Christian American was embraced and shown the love of Hussein alayhi salam. That is how we rise above hate. It was done for me. We allow ourselves to be vulnerable so our hearts can expand. And if we can't go to Arba'in, then bring Arba'in to America. Courage. Courage is the result of an expanded heart. With courage is insight to tell the truth as best as you know it when you need to tell it. That's what I try to do now in my ministry and in social media, radio show, whatever, wherever it is I do my thing. That doesn't mean I know any more than others. I don't. It doesn't mean I'm never wrong. I'm often wrong. But courage is admitting it and learning from it and keeping going. It does not mean selling you my truth. It doesn't mean that. Hearts do not expand that way. You tell what is true and you live what is true, and Allah does the rest. But it does mean that I cannot be afraid, we cannot be afraid of what we know or what we learn because of the discomfort that truth has for any of us or for others or for the powers that be. Nor can we be afraid of exploring and researching taboo areas because that's where the demonic lies, in the dark. And that's where hatred infests and the things you're not supposed to look at. Nor can I be concerned if people will reject or ridicule or whatever they must do to perfect and protect their illusions. Hussein's sacrifice shattered all illusions. In particular, he shattered an illusion that we fight hate with more hate, and that you lead with power and coercion. Hussein showed the world that you lead not with might, but with right. You fight hate with love, from an expanded and a courageous heart. That's always been the way that the true heroes rise above hatred in all of its forms. May we all be heroes in that same spirit.
I'm a Christian pastor, but because of my encounter with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, I have received a renewed faith in the work of Jesus and Hussein peace be upon them both, for justice and truth. Jesus and Hussein are brothers. They are one. If the human race is going to survive, we all must be one.